The media plays a huge role in our country. The power that they hold in the information they release to persuade the public debatably holds just as much importance, if not more, than the three branches of government. The media acts as a fourth branch of government through their ways in which they check the other three branches and manipulate the information they release to the public. I have researched the methods that media uses in order to change the public's opinions for a few years, and have been really fascinated with my findings. Along with this, I have written a few papers on the effect this has on public perception of information. This is an important topic to discuss because, as we've seen in this election, the media plays a key role in what people will believe. First, I will discuss how the media provides a check on the three branches of government. Next, I will discuss how the media skews public opinion. And lastly, I will describe why the media can be considered as a fourth branch of government. To begin, let's talk about how the media provides a check on the three branches of government. The media is able to check the three branches of government by adding bias to the information they release to the public. Now, I understand the argument that people make by saying the media was put in place simply to inform the public. As this is their supposed purpose, the ways they distribute this information to the populace strays away from their intended purpose. The media adds bias to these articles and acts as a hierarchy over our government by picking which information they want to release to the public. In a journal done by the Notre Dame Journal of Law, Rachel Liberta argues to this by stating, "Indeed, some scholars have deemed the media the fourth branch of government because of the necessary check the institution as a whole provides over the three constitutionally named branches, the legislative, executive, and the judicial." People will also claim that it's not the media's job to persuade, but rather to simply inform. Yes, in a perfect world, this makes sense. But this is not a perfect world, and the reporters are human. Therefore, reporters attempt to sway the public through biased articles. This is further explained by Liberta with the quote, "The media's power to choose the news and issues that it reports, coupled with its influence over public opinion, forms a basis of its check over the judiciary." Another response people have is that the other three branches should be much more powerful than the media because they are responsible for the lawmaking in our country, and all the media does is inform. In response to this, I say, look at all the rights that have been given to the media, which ultimately increase their power. The media was given the power to interpret and distribute information the way they please through the First Amendment. Luberta also piggybacks on this by saying, armed with the freedom to interpret and report on the various workings of the federal government, the media holds the potential to exert significant influence over the traditional constitutional branches. Now that we've talked a little about the check the media provides, I will now talk about how the media skews the public's thinking. The media is able to change how the public thinks about a certain topic by adding bias to the information that they provide. Media is able to withhold information through a gatekeeper process in which they leave out certain facts and only write about the things that align with their beliefs. In an article on biased articles, the conversation explains that the media bias can occur if journalists ignore stories not aligned with their ideological preferences. Makes sense. Another tactic the media uses is a process called framing a story. This is where the media sets up a story in a certain way in order to draw the reader in. The conversation explains this phenomenon with the quote, "News framing studies show has an effect on public opinion, though it's often short-lived." Another reason reporters can get away with bias is that oftentimes people are so fed up with the news that they simply don't want to take the time to cross-check different sources. In an article by the Cardinal, Riley Summer writes, "Biased writing presents a solution to a problem faced by Americans. Most people aren't able to keep up with the news enough to adequately formulate an opinion and are experiencing increased levels of news fatigue, leaving many people uninterested in the news altogether." The article by Summer finishes with the idea that the general public simply does not have enough time to decipher what is true and what is not. This is explained in the text. The 40-plus hour work schedules make it so reporters have time to process information. How would someone who also works or goes to school, or even both, be able to analyze that information with the same scrutiny that a professional reporter would be able to do. It's just not possible. Okay, lastly, I'll explain why the media is considered to be the fourth branch of government through their corrupt tactics. There is no doubt that the power the media holds puts them in conversation as a governmental branch. They change information which ultimately affects you and how you will think about certain topics. In her argumentative paper about the media, Luberta explicitly states, as the fourth branch of government, the media acts as a self-developed and managed entity. The main reason that media is able to act as a self-developed entity is that they are given rights by the government to review and report on the wrongdoings of the government. This is explained by Uriah Fields in the quote, "The media has rights that include her right to access information, doings and misdoings of the Congress, President, and the Supreme Courts. As they do give us the facts, how are we supposed to know that what they say is true or not? They can very easily change a few things that will completely change the narrative of what actually happened, and we cannot have this." In an article titled "The Fourth Estate as the Fourth Branch," it is stated that the implication is that it acts as a shadow government, unaccountable to the people, but is instead beholden to special interests of one sort or another, or that the press's supposed separation from the government is largely an illusion. There is no doubt that the media is corrupt in the sense of the information that they put out. This is a real issue that greatly affects the policymaking in our country, which, in turn, affects every single hardworking American. In a poll published by Breitbart, it was found that 55% of Americans believe that mainstream media is corrupt. That is a very high number. After reviewing the effects the media has on public, we now understand how the media checks the three branches of government, how they persuade the public, and how they act as a fourth branch of government. We now have a complete understanding of how the media acts as a fourth branch of government through their ways in which they frame their information. I think that is very important to learn about the effects the media has on the public. If we're not careful, we will fall into the trap that the press leads us to. As citizens of this great nation, it is important that we are cognizant of this so that we can properly base an opinion by cross-referencing different sources.